Hey there guys, my name is Rowan Clifford, and in this video I wanted to give you a run through of the new Smartbnb interface, which has had a massive overhaul in 2019. So what I want to do in this tutorial is give you a quick run through the software so you can see how things work and how to structure things correctly. Now, since my last video tutorial on Smartbnb, you can see there's been an enormous rebrand, and I got to say the UX is looking just so much better. So this is the homepage of Smartbnb, and for those of you that don't know what Smartbnb is, what it is, it's an automation tool for Airbnb hosts. Now, there's three sort of main tiers of automation that it takes control of. Number one being guest messages and communication between the host and the guest. Number two is sending out automated reminders to your cleaning team and any property managers or anything like that, any of the people that you need as part of your team to operate your Airbnb sort of business as a whole. Smartbnb offers a solution to automate all of the reminders and all of that whole flow, that task flow. It automates all of that. And also, thirdly, it also automates the reviewing process on Smartbnb. So once you kind of set this stuff up, you should, in theory, never have to write another review again. And that's why this stuff is so powerful. For a small-time host, I only got one property that I manage, and I use Smartbnb myself. But even just for that, it just saves so much work. I reckon since using it, I've saved probably over 95% of the workload that I used to have to do in guest communications and reviews and task management to my team, to my cleaners, and all that sort of stuff. Organizing and orchestrating that was, before I found this, was really quite difficult. However, since I found this and I set up the whole process for it and automated that whole flow, it's just so seamless that I really don't have to interrupt it at all. Very rarely, almost never do I have to interrupt that flow. That's why this sort of stuff is really powerful. As you scale your operation up too, if you're like a big property manager with hundreds of listings on your account, this sort of stuff would just be invaluable. It would just pay for itself 10 times over in savings with labor costs, because this stuff, it takes care of that, and it just does a much better job, in my opinion, than a person can do, because as a human we forget things, and we're not always that great with reminders and schedule and getting things sent exactly at the right time, and that's what this sort of stuff is really good for. So that all being said, let's take a deep dive into the back end, and I'll just give you a quick squeeze round so you can see exactly how the new interface is set up and what you need to do to get it set up. So this is the Smartbnb dashboard. This is once you've set everything up and you've gone through the integration process with your Airbnb account and Smartbnb, and they've created that link, you'll be shown a page something similar like this. Now, the first thing, if you're new to Smartbnb, you want to go ahead and you want to start inputting the message templates and the review templates and setting up the tasks so that this whole automation flow can take care of itself. So the first thing you really need to do is click on this little heart icon here, and that's for the guest experience. Now, the overview here is just sort of outlining the different rules, the different messaging rules that there are. Now, as you can see, I'll click on the messaging rules, and it brings up this selection of 4 different categories. And there's before booking, before check-in, whilst the guest is staying, and after checkout. So each of these messages that will get automated and fired out are all, they're all boxed into different sections so that their scheduling works. So you can set up rulings, for anything that happens before a booking. For example, before a booking, you might have, new inquiries, special offers, checkpoints, or new requests to book. You can set up messaging rules as responses for each of these questions that come in so that they can automate that process and send them straight back. Now, I personally don't use anything before booking. I think there's an element of manual control that, especially before a booking is made, that I personally like to sort of keep hold of. So I don't have anything set up at this junction here. I start sending messages once a guest has booked. So once I've gone, if there's any questions come to me, and I'll answer them manually, but once that process is locked in and the booking is confirmed, then this whole sequence kicks into gear and will run its course. So before check-in, that's where I send the majority of my messages, informing people of, what to expect and house instructions, all that sort of stuff. And as you can see, the flow goes on and on from here. Now, to add a new messaging rule, it's quite simple. You just click up into this Add New checkbox at the top here. And again, you're given these 4 different categories to of where you want to enter your message in the whole workflow and the whole scheme of things. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to write a message before check-in. It brings you up with this this area here where you can actually start constructing your message template. Now, as you notice at the as just underneath the text box here, you have the timings. This is the scheduling for the messages that you're going to send out. You have the option to send it, immediately or break it down to hours or days before this message needs to get sent out before check-in. So it's really handy to just get real dialed in with that, because the better you can get the timings of the messages, the less interruptions there'll be within your workflow. I spent sort of quite a long time really refining exactly when to send which message, and over the course of a couple of years since doing that, my messages and the interruptions I have to do are just almost non-existent now, because they're getting the right information at the right times in the guest experience, so they don't have to, they've got all the information they need, so they don't have to jump out of my sequence to ask me anything, because I've already answered it already. So that's a real handy little area to get set and to pay close attention to, is the timing of how you're going to send your messages. But when it comes to actually building in the messages itself, there's these things called shortcodes, which if you just start by typing in a percentage mark, whatever you call it, you'll see that it brings up this whole list of things. These are called shortcodes, and what these do is they add dynamic content into your messages, so that you can add something. Let's just say, for example, you might write a message saying, hey, and you want to say your guest's first name. So we'll click on that. We'll go guest first name. So when they receive this message, it dynamically delivers their first name. So we say, hey, guest first name. So hey, Tony. You go, check in is at, and then you can enter their check-in time. So let's go use these shortcodes once again. Where are we? Check-in hour. So as you can see, it dynamically inserts that content for you. And these shortcodes are really good for making your messages really personalized, because even though this process is automated, using these shortcodes is a really good way of adding personality and adding that, just making them really personalized so that it doesn't feel like it's coming from a robot. In fact, by using these shortcodes, you can create much better, much more informative, structured messages, and it just makes for a better flow, in my opinion. So that's really all you need to know about here. There's a few fine-tuning settings that you can make down the bottom here. Have a read through these and just make sure that you've selected the right ones for the rule that you're creating. And in order to activate it, you just come up the top here and click to activate on this little button here. And that's really all there is to it. So what I suggest you doing, once you get set up with Smartbnb, is going through each of these sections here, and structuring out your messages, your messaging sequence, and getting all your templates set with all the information that's needed in there, so that whole guest journey and your guest messages sort of complement it the whole way through. It takes a little bit of time to set up. It may take a few hours, a couple of days even, just to get this right. But getting it right is really valuable, because it stops that interruption. So coming on, we come down to these review rules. This is what I touched on earlier. This is how you can automate the review process. Now, what you do is you come into here, for example, and again, with the use of the shortcodes, you can tailor make these reviews into, so that you can send them to your guests as they check out, and they all look customized. So so you can say, hey, guest name, this is thanks for staying at the place, you left it so nice, blah 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 blah. And what you do is you can also set the timings as to when these reviews get sent out. You can send them out immediately, obviously, or up to, I think it's 14 days. I don't know why there's 28 days set on there, but you can set it up to 14 days, which is the cutoff before you can no longer leave a review for your guests. Now, I personally send mine out 3 days after the guest has checked out. Usually that gives me enough time to get some feedback from my cleaning team, if any damages or anything that I need to report or anything that I need to do in order to interrupt my review process. If there's nothing to interrupt, I just go 5 stars all the way, and I let my reviews, I have 3 on rotation, I just let them rotate, and that seems to work pretty fine for me. Obviously you can add more, probably better to add more, but I just stick with the 3, and that's served me pretty well so far. So yeah, as I said, create 3 separate templates for your reviews, and you can set the star ratings and everything on there as well. So set more, at least 3, if not more of these, and you can set them up to be on rotation. So effectively, once you spend a few minutes setting this up, you'll never have to write another review again. And that, in my opinion, is good news, because this is always something that I always used to put off to the last minute. Now I just don't have to worry about it anymore. Now, this little questions tab here, this is a new addition to Smartbnb in 2019 with the new update. This is what Smartbnb likes to call the AI solution to answering frequently asked questions. Now, as a host, you might get questions, like, do you have parking, or what's the Wi-Fi code? And these are sort of questions you get a lot. And you can actually program Smartbnb to send pre-written messages whenever it detects one of these terms within somebody's question to you. For example, let's have a click on Wi-Fi here. You can see that whenever a guest sends you a message like any of these above here, or basically anything that has the term Wi-Fi in it, you can add like internet connection. The more information you can tell it, the more chances are that it's going to be able to pick up on these questions within your messages and be able to provide instant answers to your guests. Now, you don't have to have these AI-driven questions sent out automatically. You can also set the message to trigger a notification to you to tell you that somebody's asked this question, and you've got a pre-written canned response ready to ping back off. So the AI is detecting the question, and you can manually send the answer and okay that the answer gets sent back, which is quite a good sort of balance between like full automation and having some manual control, so that you can make sure you're getting the context of the question is correct, and that you're sending the right answers to your guests. So this is a real handy tool, especially if you're like a larger property manager with multiple properties and you're getting lots and lots of questions. This can be an awesome time-saving hack and can add a lot of value and give the answers to your guests much quicker than doing it manually could do. Now, I won't go over the custom codes and canned responses here. They're something that you would probably set up later in the process with Smartbnb. But really, yeah, so this first section is all about your messaging rules and getting that whole message flow set up, and your review rules and review templates, and also these AI-driven answers to your FAQs, which can be real handy if you spend enough time digging in here and creating good answers to these FAQs. Again, that takes away a whole nother level of work that's needed when you're operating as a host on Airbnb. Now, dropping down, this is the operations tab. Now, I like to think of this as kind of like the staff area. This is like the back end of your operations as an Airbnb host. This is what you have to organize in order to create like a seamless guest experience for your guests when they arrive in your place. So this is all about setting up reminders and tasks for your cleaners and your property managers, and your entire team can be communicated through this area, which is the operations. And you can create such things as task rules. Now, these task rules are for sending notifications to your cleaners. For example, say check in. For example, an example notification might be guest has checked out today. Go around there at 11 and do the clean for 1 hour. Such as an example. So to create these rules, you click on this add new tab, and you can go and create the rule, again depending in that sequence as to whether it's the clean in, before check-in, after checkout, and for maintenance. And you can assign each of these tasks to the different members in your team. Now, speaking of team, this area here, this is where you would go about adding your team members and adding all of their information. Once you've done this, Smartbnb can then communicate with them directly via email or SMS. And both of those are real handy as notifications for your team, so that they're keeping in the loop. So you can come down here, so you can select user roles for each of these members of your team in this area here, and come down and create that as you go there. So that's how you go about creating your team. Now the notification rules, now this is where the real sort of power comes in, and this is something that you should pay close attention to. This is really like when and what notifications you send to the different members of your team. Now, a notification by definition has to be, it's really time sensitive. It has to be kind of sent at exactly the right time. If you send it too early, then it kind of defies the point of a notification, in itself, because it's not a notification. It'll just get forgotten about and, not remembered. So it's time sensitive. It has to be sent at the right time, and it has to be sent at the right time every time. And that's where this piece of kit really comes into its own, because you can set up these reminders in here so that your team is reminded exactly when they need to be. Now, I have 20 plus notifications on here, and you can go through these, and I would suggest going through these and building the notifications for your liking and for all of your team members. You can create, again, there's different categories as to how you can create these notifications, for either for an event or reminders, or notifications of tasks. But spend a little bit of time digging in here and constructing these notifications and the rules that go along with them. And this is, again, just make sure everybody's in the loop in your team so that you got that whole seamless process dialed. Now, inside the area, when you're constructing these templates, again, you can see at the top here, you can have the choice as to whether to notify someone by email or by SMS. Both can be really handy, and I use both personally. I tend to go with email a little bit further out, a couple of days prior to a check-in, and I go for SMS on the day of arrival, just so that they've been made doubly aware of the check-in that's coming in, because the last thing you want is for a guest to check in and for a changeover to have not been completed, which is definitely something I've had in the past and I've had to deal with. But since I've been using this, I've never had to worry about it. And again, you can set the timings for the messages down the bottom here, and you're able to fine-tune the certain preferences down the bottom here. And these team area, this is who you are actually sending the message to. So you can create these team members, and so only they will be notified when this event has happened, so they'll be pinged off notifications. So that really creates that whole flow that I'm talking about. So as an example of this flow, a guest books, once a guest is booked, all of the messaging throughout their whole stay is taken care of. Pre-check-in instructions, house manual, all that sort of stuff. You've got a welcome message, checkout notice, and then a thank you message at the end. That whole flow is taken care of, and you as a host, you never have to send a single message. This takes care of all of it for you. As a guest checks out, the review process kicks in. You're 3 days after a guest has checked out, or whatever duration you decide, the reviews are then pinged off to Airbnb, and that's taken care of. Again, that's something you don't have to do as a host. And throughout all of that process, leading into a guest check-in, your team, your cleaners and your property manager, and everybody's aware of exactly what's happening and who's coming at what time and how many guests and what to expect. So that's all taken care of. Leading up to check-in, everybody's notified in your team, and as a guest arrives and is about to check out, also your team members are all in that loop as well. Checkout is happening in 12 hours time. Team, get ready. You need to go in at 11 o'clock, whatever time the next day, to get the changeover sorted. So that whole big cycle, that whole loop is taken care of, and it's all done within Smartbnb here. So it's a super powerful tool, and it saves a ton of time. So that really is the core functionality of what Smartbnb does. That's why it's so powerful, and it really just scales up. The more properties that you own, it just gets more and more valuable as you scale things up, because it just takes care of all of these minute little processes the whole way through. So one other little addition I guess I should just go through quickly would be the inbox here, because sometimes if you're managing everything from Smartbnb here, it can be, it's just easier to not go between two interfaces, between the Airbnb.com sort of back-end interface for hosting, where you send messages and whatnot. And sometimes you can just keep it all in-house here. So you get notified of all new messages, unread messages, everything from here. And I've actually, since using it, it took me a while to get used to it at the start, but since I now use this exclusively, I find it a much easier interface to use than Airbnb's own interface natively. And because all of my information is on Smartbnb here, I find it much easier to use. So that's the inbox there, and it's worth just having a little play around with and just getting a feel for it. And give it if you are interested in Smartbnb, give it a go. Give it a bit of a runway, because as I said, it can take a little bit of a while getting used to, but I think once you do get the hang of it, I think you might quite like it, and you may see it as a good alternative to going on Airbnb natively. Okay, so that's really it. That's the Smartbnb tutorial for 2019. They've had a massive upgrade, as I said, and this tool's just getting more and more powerful, as they go. I, speak to these guys quite a lot, Pierre and the guys that have built this software program, and I know they've got some big plans. Especially as you come down here, we've got these metrics, which are going to be, I've had a sneak peek into the background of what these do, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to give you, so much valuable data to be running off, which I can't wait for them to make it live. And that's coming very soon also. So there you have it. That's a Smartbnb tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up to date with anything that comes up like this that can help you as an Airbnb host. And if you do want to check out Smartbnb, there's a link just down below this video where you can get a 14-day free trial with Smartbnb, and you don't even need a credit card or anything like that. So if you want to check it out further, click the link below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, peace out. My name is Rowan Clifford. I'll see you soon.